allegedly led an epic comeback in Chris Brickley's gym last night against a team led by C.J. McCollum. Bobby, what's the market for JR this season?
The big three. and that's a big three shot right there, Cassidy. I think the market right now is that he's going to have to hope that there's going to be an injury during the year and that he can sign with a team midseason here. Sorry, JR.
It's rough city, Bobby, with the flamethrower. I'm surprised by it. In a league where, the three, you live or die by it.
Everybody wants shooters.
Guy's going to be cheap.
He still remains to be J.R. Smith.
I'm just saying. Let's go. Welcome to The Jump. I'm Cassidy Albers, filling in for the one and only Rachel Nichols, who's still on vacation. And I'm alongside our ESPN front office insider, Bobby Marks, and our NBA reporter, Royce Young. And coming up, Damian Lillard says if he formed a super team, there would be little doubt he'd get a chip. But also says there's zero fun in that. Does he have a point? We'll get into all that in a little bit. And while Team USA's star power has been picked apart, all things considered, they're still a super team. And they took care of business down under this morning with a 102-86 win over Australia in front of over 51,000 people, the largest crowd ever to watch a basketball game in Australia. It was the 78th win in a row for the U.S. national team. It also made this current squad 2-0 after last weekend's exhibition over Spain. But this game wasn't a cakewalk. Australia, in fact, briefly took the lead early in the second half before the U.S. scored 13 unanswered. Kemba Walker fueling the second half push, scoring 21 of his 23 after the break. Patty Mills had 19 points. Matthew Dellavedova had 10 for the Aussies. Now, 6 players scored in double figures for the U.S., and Miles Turner handled Andrew Bogut and Aaron Baines down low, putting up 15 and 14. So, Bobby, your biggest takeaway from the exhibition this morning?
My biggest take is that we might be sleeping on Boston a little bit too much here. I think if you're Danny Ainge right now, you're feeling pretty good. I know it's an exhibition game, but with Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, who's injured right now, this is a team that we've kind of pegged in that 3 to 5 range in the Eastern Conference, but I think they might be more towards that Milwaukee-Philadelphia range right now.
When it comes to just the game itself, Cassidy, and how Team USA played, I think this is all actually the formula for them to be successful in this tournament, because this is how I think a lot of these games are going to go. They're going to be a little bit close. Teams are going to try to outplay them, out-execute them, and then it's just going to come down to shot making. That's how the U.S. has typically won in these tournaments. They access that international three-point line. They try to get hot, hit you with a run, and that's exactly what they did in this game.
Well, look, Team USA went to Australia with 13 players battling for 12 roster spots. So were there any clues from this game that help you decide who you think is going to get cut?
I think Miles Turner made a big impact in this game.
Huge.
You mentioned how good he played against Australia's bigs. There's kind of been some conversation of how many bigs does the U.S. want. There's been some belief that Mason Plumlee's a guy that they want to keep. We were talking before the show started, Cassidy, and they need him for Jokic in that possible matchup. And if Miles Turner was going to be the guy left out, I think he's making a case for him to be on there. And then, there's been a lot of conversation about Kuzma, too, and where he'll fit in.
I think you're probably looking at maybe one of the guards. I think Derek White possibly, who got a DMP.
Well, he had 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
2 minutes, and
pretty much.
And then Marcus Smart, who's been injured right now. I think you make a good point, Royce, as far as one of the bigs. It would have been Lopez or Mason Plumlee, but I think it's probably leaning towards one of those guards right now.
And there's been a lot of conversation about Kyle Kuzma on the cusp. He had played 19 minutes, and he shot from 3. So is he still kind of on that bubble?
He did exactly what we were talking about, what Team USA needs. They need that floor spacer. And, he started 3 of 3 from 3, hit 4 of 5 in the game. He's one of those guys that can kind of jolt you and engineer one of those quick runs that separates a 4-point game into a 13-point game. So I think Kuzma made a pretty solid impact for himself today.
Yeah, and he stepped up in front of that big crowd. And despite the huge crowd, some fans were issued refunds for the game. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission released a statement saying it was, quote, aware of refunds being made to consumers for the USA basketball games, referring to 3 exhibition games this week and next in Melbourne and Sydney. Now, in its original promotion, the promoter, TEG Live, used images of stars Steph Curry and LeBron James. And back in 2018, they billed Team USA's visit as the biggest game Australia has ever seen and said there would be the greatest names in basketball history. Now, there's some good names, but obviously...
The disrespect for Harrison Barnes.
Look, though, Royce, how much blame do you put on Team USA for not bringing the greatest names in basketball?
Look, it's not their responsibility to necessarily do this. This is up to the players. And one of the things, Cass, is that this is the way the World Cup typically goes. You know, the Olympics is where the big names typically want to play in it. And you don't see the biggest names in the NBA play in the World Cup. It just typically doesn't happen. So this shouldn't come as a surprise.
Blame the promoter, not Team USA. And I think our Mark Spears wrote an article about Kemba Walker feeling disrespected early in the week. And if I think it's probably double now if they're giving back.
NBA guy.
Yeah, I mean, this is still a good team. I mean, this is a team that's going to be the favorite here. But yeah, I mean, if you're someone from Australia and you think that you're going to go see Steph Curry and LeBron James and you show up, but still to get 50,000 people in that arena, and then they've got another exhibition game, I believe, tomorrow. We'll see if that same
I blame load management, okay? This team is a lot younger than the 2014 team, and I just feel like, you know, the bigger stars, they want to protect themselves because it's just not the Olympics.
Yeah, here's one of the things, though, is that some of these names that you see on this list, you mentioned a couple of them, Bobby.
This is the 2014 team.
Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
Even go back to the 2010 team, the team that went to Turkey and played. There's a lot of young players on that team that weren't the guys then that they are now. And so you could...
Derrick Rose became an MVP.
Kevin Durant was one of the best players on that team. So these were quote-unquote young guys. This is an up-and-coming team. But you can also go back, and those people that watch Team USA then can say, hey, I watched those guys back when they weren't the players they are now.
Well, like you
I'm
said,
making a good case. I should be a promoter.
Well, maybe, you know what, I think I hear Australia needs a new promoter for their FIBA games. You're talking about the disrespect for Kemba Walker. Well, he was a leading scorer with 23 points and 6 rebounds. And after the game, he said, quote, I'm one of the leaders of this team, so it's important for me to set the tone. But Royce, do you think that Kemba's the best player on the USA roster?
I don't know that he's necessarily the best player, but he's going to be their most important player to me. And he's going to be the guy that they're going to be looking to if there is a close game. That's a good question. Maybe I do think Jason Tatum is maybe the best overall player, will be the best player. I mean, look, Kemba Walker's an all-star. He's an all-NBA guy. But
who will be the best player, and who's the best player?
You're making a good case. He probably is the current best player. Well, I mean, to me, it's about, you know, who's the guy that they're going to be looking to finish games and to get them across the finish line. And Kemba Walker's going to be the guy. In my mind, yeah, he is the best player. I'm looking at this roster. He's the best.
I mean, the Donovan Mitchell
could have a good case.
Notoriety.
Yeah.
But, you know, Bobby, when you look at that, who jumps out to you as the best player?
It's hands down Kemba Walker. I think the lone All-NBA player on this team, and I think they cannot afford for him to go into a cold spell. I think what the recipe tonight is that, you know, that 23 points. And this Team USA goes by the backcourt. The Walker-Donovan Mitchell backcourt is how this team is going to succeed here.
Yeah. And I also do a lot of people talking about Donovan Mitchell, but I think given the fact that he was in the playoffs the last 2 years, I just think Kemba Walker's reputation takes a hit just because he was playing in Charlotte. Even though I agree, I think he's hands down the best player on this team. Now, if Damian Lillard didn't withdraw from the FIBA World Cup at the end of July, he hands down would have been the best player on the team. But look, no one can knock his loyalty to the Blazers, but Dame has gone on the record many times about his unwillingness to leave Portland in search of joining a super team. He agreed to a 4-year contract extension worth $196 million and said this to Complex. Quote, to leave, what did I invest all this time for? Just to leave, you know? If I go play with 3 other stars, I don't think that many people would doubt that I could win it. We would win it. But what is the challenge or the fun in that? Bobby, if Dame's heart is set on winning in Portland, how much better of a team can they build around him?
Well, they're going to have to build through the draft. I mean, that's going to be the recipe. What they drafted Zach Collins a couple of years ago and Nasir Little this year. You've got Damian and C.J. McCollum, who signed those big extensions. They don't kick into 2021. You've got $80 million plus locked into those 2 players. So, yeah, the best way to build the team is to do it through the draft organically, like Golden State did before they added Kevin Durant, with Thompson, Curry, Green, Harrison, Barnes. And then you get to that point where you have the flexibility to maybe add that one player. But how this team goes is going to be through the draft here. You saw Rodney Hood sign for $5.6 million. It's kind of those trimming around the edges here.
Guy like Kevin Love's not an option?
Well, he could be. Then that's going to be the interesting name this year as far as where this Cleveland team goes. He's still owed 4 years, $120 million. What is it going to cost the Trailblazers to kind of get into Kevin Love if he's made available?
Yeah, they're the type of team that